Greetings, intrepid adventurers. Brace yourselves for a magical journey into the bonus content for Gretchen's Misadventures Episode 11, The Kingmaker's Sword. Today we're unlocking the secrets of Gretchen and Nora's twin notebooks, unveiling a Jurgen and Cordelia short story, enduring a dragon's fiery rant, and presenting a character illustration that adds a touch of enchantment to this misadventure. Let's start with this amusing correspondence between our two favourite witches. I finished up on the battlefield and am heading back directly. I'll pop by the cottage in a few weeks. Looking forward to a tot of witch's brew. Don't bother, it burned down, staying at the Salt and Bog. What? Oh, the Grand Wizard went mad, put out an arrest warrant out on me for murder, and sent his goons to wreck all my worldly possessions. What in the name of light did you do? Do? I didn't do anything. Elod left a stupid sword in my pouch that had the power to usurp the king. If I could have just gotten the darn thing out, I would have happily lopped his head off with it. So you're on the run? Nah, the Grand Wizard got torched by a dragon and I exploded my pouch for the greater good. Cordelia got the Wizard Assembly to agree to restitution though, so there is that. Good grief. Sounds like you've had quite the adventure. Something like that. How was the cursed battlefield? Rather an anticlimax after that, I should think. But why didn't you send word sooner? Ugh, you know how I feel about texting. It's not like you could have done anything. Unwelcome news. The draft horse, better suited to plodding along behind a cart, heaved as Jurgen pulled into the city stables. Sliding off the sweaty beast, he thrust the reins into a stable lad's hands with a coin and rushed off without a word. The boy's face was frozen in shock. Jurgen imagined it wasn't every day a troll galloped bareback into the city, but there was no time for explanations. Old Henry would be fine after a good fill of hay. While not a frequenter of the city, and certainly not the Witches' Academy, Jurgen knew which lanes to slip down to get there as directly as the winding roads allowed. She had to be there. If the message with that bat was anything to go by, Gretchen must have thought she was being particularly clever about her sudden disappearance. Ignoring those who shrank from him in the street or openly pointed, Jurgen ploughed onward and took the academy's steps 2 at a time when he arrived at the looming building. Piper would be in class. He had no other option than to ask for Gretchen directly or go snooping around to find her. But the girl who stood behind a desk in the lobby wouldn't have any of it, despite her face paling on seeing him. "What do you mean she's not here?" Jurgen barked. The girl's lip trembled and she held a hand to her chest, reminding Jurgen to keep from snarling with his fangs out. "She's wanted by the constabulary," she blurted. "There's no way she would return." "Her sister, then." Jurgen clenched his fists behind his back to keep from frightening her. "Cordelia, I must speak with her at once." The girl opened her mouth as if to protest, but must have thought better of it. Clearing her throat, she turned to a wall with pipes opening into some kind of mouthpieces, and Jurgen began pacing the marble floors, burned to the ground. The only remnants left were broken stone walls, scorched cauldrons, and a fireplace. The culprits had long since ridden away. Jurgen had noted the mess of hoofprints in the lane, and the last of the roof beams smouldered as he poked around the perimeter. He'd searched the surrounding countryside for any sign of Mulligan, but the little scamp was nowhere to be found. Jurgen had a terrible feeling that... "Master Jurgen!" A crisp voice carried across the vacant room, and Jurgen halted to turn toward the stairs. Cordelia Mirkwood, Vice-Chancellor of the Witches' Academy, stood on the lower landing with her hands clasped in front of her. Her face was unreadable, and Jurgen swallowed as he realized the cottage must have been her home too once. "Vice-Chancellor?" Jurgen approached and chose his words with care. "I've come bearing most unwelcome news." Cordelia's eyes swept the foyer, and she held up a finger. "Come." Jurgen followed her upstairs in a bewildering set of stairwells and curved mezzanines. How witches got anything done with all the twists and turns was beyond the troll, but he kept the notion to himself. Cordelia said nothing as they ascended toward her study. Jurgen wondered if Gretchen would have his hide for blabbing about the circumstances to her. But when Cordelia opened the door with a nod for the troll to enter, he sagged with relief as he spotted a wicker basket in the corner, with an unmistakable purple ball of fluff inside. "Mulligan!" Jurgen rushed over to sink to his knees, and the sleepy cat blinked his eyes open. He gave the familiar a scratch behind the ears with a wide grin before recalling Cordelia was waiting on his account. Clearing his throat, he stood and turned, his face sombre. "Vice-Chancellor, I've come from your sister's cottage in Edgewood. I'm afraid—" He heaved a deep breath. "It's been razed to the ground, madam." Cordelia, who Jurgen knew from previous encounters was an unflappable sort, gasped and pressed a hand to her mouth. Her eyes glittered with emotion, and Jurgen wrung his hands uncomfortably. Mulligan, who'd evidently decided he was happy to see the troll, threaded his way around Jurgen's legs. Absent-mindedly, Jurgen stooped to pick up the scraggly feline and nestled him in the crook of his arms. I know who it was." Cordelia's voice was strangled, and she leaned against her desk to rub her eyes. "Even so, this is well beyond the reach of the arcane constabulary." Jurgen wasn't sure what to say, and whether he should inquire after Gretchen, but Cordelia saved him the trouble. "I don't know where she is, and that's probably for the better." She poured a measure of a clearish purple liquor from a decanter on her desk and offered it to him. Surprised, Jurgen juggled Mulligan to accept the offer, though he wasn't a fan of witch's brew. "You must know at least something if you've come here. Best not to exchange information. Information can become a liability." The woman's eyes were haunted, and Jurgen threw back the dram as she poured her own and gulped it down. It tasted of herbs and brimstone, with a fiery burn which Jurgen knew from experience would be uncomfortable later. "I don't know where she is either." Jurgen met the Vice-Chancellor's eyes. "But I want to help. She is coming back, isn't she?" Cordelia huffed bitterly and poured another drink. "Who knows with my sister? She's been in tight spots before and came out the other side unscathed. But this is something else." "Piper?" Jurgen arched an eyebrow. "Safe?" Cordelia nodded, though she threw quite the fit when she realised Gretchen had left her here. "You won't tell her about the cottage, will you?" Jurgen appraised the woman, who he'd previously concluded had little regard for anyone without a title, and decided he had the wrong end of it. Piper would throw a bigger fit when she realised Jurgen had kept the news from her, but he could see why Cordelia wouldn't want to upset her any further. Jurgen couldn't begin to fathom what trouble Gretchen had gotten herself into this time, but trouble seemed to be a close companion of hers. "I'll stay in the city." Jurgen stroked Mulligan and set him back in his basket. "To be on hand if you have need of me. Gretchen has stuck her neck out for me on more than one occasion. It's time I repay the favour." Cordelia chewed her lip and seemed to come to some conclusion as she nodded slowly. Circling her desk, she rifled through a drawer and pulled out a purse. She crossed the distance between them and pressed what he presumed was coin into his palm and stared up at him with the severity he was more accustomed to. "Stay at the Swine and Claw. I'll get a message to you if I have news. Cross my sister, and I'll unravel whatever enchantment has you upright and talking." Swallowing, Jurgen acknowledged the threat with the barest of nods, pardoning it already as a show of familial protectiveness. "Understood." Virag's declaration. "I, the mighty dragon Vira, send my emissary as a sign of good faith to deliver the news of your grand wizard's demise. Wizard and dragonkind have long had an accord which was blatantly disregarded when Morath Nightstaff brought mage fire to my lair in an unprovoked attack. He met his end screaming, as was his due, and I caution the Wizards Guild to elect a better candidate to represent their cause. I am within my rights to take an eye for an eye and bear dragonfire down on your establishment, yet I show mercy. I must demand a grovelling apology. Should a party of wizards attend my mountain with anything less than a white flag waved liberally, I shall scorch them into the earth. Should this demand be disregarded, I shall call forth my brethren and raise them from their peaceful slumber. A new era of dragon supremacy will reign, and the blood of wizards shall mark our ascension. The war bells have tolled. It is within your hands to unring the instrument of destruction. I shall await your response, but not for long. My wrath rises with each passing day. It has been many centuries since I feasted on the flesh of a conjurer, and confess I prefer them medium rare and writhing within my maw. To satisfy my hunger, your guild would be well advised to bring a flock of goats as a peaceful offering. And here we have this illustration by Rod Savelli, showing Gretchen searching frantically for the sword secreted in her infinity pouch. We hope you revelled in the enchanted notebook correspondence, the captivating short story, the dragon's fiery rant, and the mesmerising character illustration from episode 11, The Kingmaker's Sword. If you're hungry for more mischievous delights and exclusive behind-the-scenes treasures, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. Until next time, may your days be filled with magic, mischief, and a touch of fantastical adventure.